Hi, this is a lecture called How to Build a House, but it's really a metaphor for how to learn English. There are many ways to build a house. One way to build a house is out of snow and ice. You've probably heard of that. People who live in the Arctic often build their houses out of snow and ice, and they call it an igloo. In some places in Africa, people make their houses out of mud. Mud is dirt and water mixed together. In Malaysia and other South Pacific places, people build their houses out of bamboo. And in some places of the world, like England and Scotland, people find stones and build their houses out of stones. One way to build a house is out of cinder blocks. This is a picture of a cinder blocks, and this is a house that's being built out of cinder blocks. In the United States, the most common ways to build a house are out of brick and out of wood. The Laney College buildings are all made out of brick. Here's a little house that a woman made in her backyard. It's called a miniature brick house. It's not a real-sized house. This woman wanted it for a little cottage in the back, but she's almost as tall as the house is. Here's an old wooden house. You can see from the way the house is aged, the slats of wood and how everything is made out of wood in this house. Here's a pile of bricks. If I wanted to build a house out of bricks, I would have to buy a pile of bricks. Here's a pile of lumber. Lumber is the word that we use for wood when it's used for building. We use wood for lots of things. People carve wood, people burn wood, that's called firewood. But when you build a house, you have to buy lumber. Let's build a house. Let's start with a foundation and some building materials. This foundation is probably made out of concrete because concrete is the most common way to build a foundation in the United States. And we're going to build this house out of bricks. A person who builds a house out of bricks is called a brick mason. This is a brick mason using bricks and mortar to build a wall. Mortar is the white stuff that you see between the bricks. Mortar is like concrete. You mix it together and you use it to hold the bricks together. Let's go back to our picture of the bricks and the foundation. So after we get everything together, we can start to put some bricks down. But first we have to take some mortar and put it on the foundation, and then we can lay, and to make that we have to mix the mortar in a bucket. So here we have a bucket, and the brick mason uses a trowel to take the mortar and put it on the foundation to begin the work. So here's the foundation. Imagine that he put some mortar on the foundation and we're going to put down our first brick. So here's brick number one. But this is not a whole brick. This is only half a brick. But beside this half a brick, we put a whole brick. Why did we start with a half a brick? Well, brick masons have to be careful to make a beautiful pattern when they're laying the bricks. So in this case, he started with a half a brick, and that will make the pattern look beautiful later on. I'll show you later. Now we'll put some more mortar and another brick, and another brick, and another brick, and now we'll put a half a brick. And now we're going to leave a space. And on the other side of the space, we'll put another half a brick. And then another whole brick, another whole brick, another whole brick, another whole brick, and a half a brick. This is hard work, and I'm getting tired. But there's still some time left today, so we'll go back and start the second row. So I put down some more mortar, and I put a whole brick so that I have a space that splits between the whole brick, so we'll have a beautiful pattern. Now I'll put another whole brick, and another whole brick, and another whole brick, and another whole brick. And of course we have to leave our space, so we'll put another whole brick on the other side. So when we teachers teach English, and when you study English, you may actually feel like you're building a house out of bricks. We teach you one brick, for example, the simple present tense of the verb be, and then you learn am, is, and are, and that's a brick. And then you go back and you learn a second thing. You learn the simple past tense of the verb be, and you learn was and were, and that's another brick. And then you go back and you learn there is and there are, and that's another brick. And so as you're learning to build this house, you're building the house one brick at a time. Brick, 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 brick. And that's a great way to build a house, and it will make a big, strong house. But it's going to be a long time before you can see what this house looks like. So let's compare to building a house out of wood. So we have our foundation down here, and we start with the lumber, the pile of wood for building. And then we get some tools. I showed you my tools a little earlier than I meant to. And the person who's going to use the tools is called a builder. Sometimes builders are contractors. So a contractor is a special kind of builder. He's a builder, but he hires other people through what we call contracts. He writes a contract and signs a contract with you or whoever he's building for. And he also makes contracts with people that he's going to hire to do the work on your house. So contracts are agreements that are on paper that the contractor uses to hire people, and he makes a contract with the person who he's building the house for as well. So that's why he's called a contractor. Let's go back again and look at our tools and our foundation. So when he takes this wood and uses the tools, the contractor or the builder are going to make what's called the frame of a wooden house. So this is what we call the frame of a wooden house. And you should look at it for a minute because it's different than building a house out of brick. You cannot live in this house any more than you can live in the house out of brick. You can see the trees on the other side of the house because it's all open. If it rained, you would get wet. But you can look at this house and see how big it is. You can see where there are going to be rooms. You can see that there's going to be an attic in the top of the house. An attic is a place up here. It looks like this. That part of the house is where people sometimes build a room, but sometimes they just store things up there. So let's build our house out of wood. First, we'll take a piece of wood and lay it on the foundation, and then it has to be bolted into the foundation. So a bolt is a type of big screw that people use that when you pour the foundation, you leave the bolts sticking out, and you can screw this piece of wood with the bolts and with nuts that go on the bolts to make that attached to the foundation. This first piece of wood has a name. It's called the sill plate. I know this because when I was young, I helped a builder build a house, and he taught me that word. So you put the sill plate, and after the sill plate is in, you can start to build a frame for the house. So there are different ways of doing this, but we'll just do ours one piece of wood at a time. This cross piece is going to make these straight pieces that are sticking up stronger. And then we'll put a piece over the top, and we have the beginnings of a frame. But we haven't got the attic yet. So we'll put 2 pieces of wood here, and you can see now where the attic of this house is going to be. So the attic, A-T-T-I-C, is this top of the house that looks like a triangle up here. That part of the house. So that's the basic frame of the house. We could add some things to the frame. We could put what's called a header down here, and another piece down here, and another piece down here. And what do you think that's going to be? We'll put another piece there. That's going to be a door. That's right. That's going to be a door. And maybe if we go up to this floor up here, we can put another header here, and a cross subheader here, and a little piece there, and a little piece there, and we're making a window. So that's how builders or contractors frame a house. But this house doesn't need windows and a door, so we're going to go back and look at the basic frame of the house. Remember, I told you that this lecture is not really about building a house. It's really a metaphor. Remember the word metaphor? Metaphor is when you try to explain one thing. Sorry, I spelled the word wrong. I forgot the A in metaphor. Metaphor. I put it in the wrong place. Metaphor. M-E-T-A-P-H-O-R. Metaphor is like when you say love is like a rose, or if you compare politicians to cats and dogs fighting with each other, that's a kind of metaphor. You could say the moon is like a piece of cheese up in the sky. So those are all metaphors. This metaphor uses a house to try and explain to you how I want to build this language with you. So instead of teaching you piece by piece, brick by brick, I want you to see the big picture. And the big picture starts with the attic, which is up here. An attic is kind of like an umbrella on a house. So if you had an umbrella over your head, the umbrella is shaped kind of like this. Comes down like this, sorry, and goes like this, and it keeps you dry. So I like to think of the attic of my house as like an umbrella. And this umbrella, or this attic, is where we keep vocabulary. And over here, this first little room right here is called parts of speech. And the next room is verb tenses. And the next room is a thing called syntax. And the bottom room on the left is for punctuation and capitalization. And spelling goes in the middle on the bottom there. And the last one is pronunciation. So if you've looked in my Canvas shell, you've seen this banner, VPV, SP, and a small c, SP, or you can just think of it as VPV, SP, SP, to try and remember it. And the V stands for vocabulary, the P stands for parts of speech, this V stands for verb tenses, this S stands for syntax, the P and the C are punctuation and capitalization, which go together. This blue S is spelling, and this pink P is pronunciation. VPV, SP, SP. But don't forget the small c after this P. VPV, SP, SP. VPV, SP, SP. So if you've looked further in my Canvas shell, this is what I call the 7 things to learn about English. Vocabulary, parts of speech, verb tenses, syntax, punctuation and capitalization, spelling, and pronunciation. That's all. See you later.